It's April, and I'm back! I've got my books, I've got my bookcases, I've got my cats. Life is good. As you can tell, July is over, so that means July wrap-up. This is going to be a little different than a lot of my other wrap-ups. I've gotten used to the flow of doing a mid-month wrap-up and end-month wrap-up because between the beginning of the month and the end of the month, I usually tend to read to a point where I don't remember what I read at the beginning of the month, but because of the way everything was scheduled out this month, all of that went out the window. It was pure chaos this month, and I kind of enjoyed it, even if it was a little stressful and all of that. The beginning of the month went pretty well, and then Book-Tube-A-Thon and my trip to Berlin. Those overlapped in such a way that I didn't get my mid-month wrap-up out, but I did get my Book-Tube-A-Thon wrap-up done, so if you want to check that out, click the thing that's appearing over my head or down below in the description, because I talk about the 4 books I managed to read in that week, and now I am going to go over the 8 books that I read for the rest of the month. Now that number doesn't match a lot of my other reading months. The reason for this is because this last half of the month I kind of got to a point in my work life where stress was a real thing and I had some anxiety, and if I was reading and the book was to the point in the story in which that frustration and that anxiety grew, I couldn't do it. For my mental health, I set the books down, I just was, and I'm okay with that. So most of the other books I did read at the beginning of this month, so we're gonna try to remember what the heck went on. So bear with me. Bear with me. Besides all of the stress in my trip, I did enjoy visiting Berlin and just experiencing a different culture and all of that. And I have a little video up of when I went to go find a bookstore so I could find some books, and it was great. So you should check that out too, because you can. For the books that I read this month, the first one I picked up was Zeros by Scott Westerfeld. This is a story of a group of teens that have superpowers, but they're not the typical superpowers that you think of when you think of superheroes. They are powers to see through other people's eyes. They are powers to persuade people to do certain things. They are powers to create mobs or to instill a leader-follow mentality. These group of teens call themselves Zeros, and in the beginning of the story, Sam, one of the teens, ends up getting himself into some trouble because he has a voice that normally he just lets loose and it's supposed to get him out of trouble, but a lot of times it gets him into more trouble. This is what happens. He's in a bank robbery and things just go all kinds of crazy. This was an interesting story to read. It had a lot to do with family dynamics and friendship dynamics and how these kind of powers could influence and destroy but build, and it's all about interconnections of people, which I found really interesting, and Scott Westerfeld did it very well. I did enjoy it, and I think I came out to a point where I probably don't want to deal with any kind of superpower because it just creates a bigger mess than I ever really want to deal with. That was my lesson learned from that book. Next was Catacombs by Madeline Rocks, which is book 3 in the Asylum series. In this book, Dan, Abby, and Jordan are driving out to Louisiana the summer before the first year of college, and Dan is starting to put together pieces of his parentage. I won't go into a lot of it because it could spoil the first 2 books in the series, but you do still get a lot of the photography and everything interwoven within the story and that slight creepy factor. It was interesting to read. There were points where I wasn't impressed, but I did enjoy that little creep factor that underlined the whole story and the pictures in the book, as always, because photography and old photographs I always enjoy looking at. I then started to read the Southern Reach series by Jeff Vandermeer. Read the first 2 books in the series, which is Annihilation and Authority. This is a story about an area called Area X. Weird things have always been associated with it, but it's one of those things that everyone has kept quiet about, but there are this group of researchers who are constantly going in and trying to figure out what is going on in this little area. It is a sci-fi story, and it's an adult sci-fi story. Some weird stuff happens throughout all of it. There isn't really a clear way to explain what the series is about. I did really enjoy it. The first one more than the second one. Annihilation was told in a journal format by one of the researchers, who we will call the biologist. And then the second story, Authority, it takes place after this group of explorers in Annihilation come back, and it's dealing with all of the fallout of everything that has happened and trying to figure things out, where this new character, Control, is trying to put the pieces together of what is going on in this facility and in this research. It's a little mind trippy, which I think is why I liked it. I'm kind of excited to pick up the last in the series, but it is currently not available at my library, so I've had to hold off, and it's kind of driving me nuts right now. Just a little bit. But that will be read, because I am enjoying the possibility of where the story could go. I can't do a month without doing a buddy read with Shayla at Shay Geeks Out, so that happened again, and this time we picked up 1,000 Nights by E.K. Johnson. This is a retelling of the Arabian Nights, or 1001 Nights, in which the story takes on a slightly different quality. There are these other creatures that like to play with mankind, and that is part of the story of why things could be happening. You don't necessarily get the character of Scheherazade. Different characters and different names are put into place for this retelling, but it is still told from the perspective of the culture that is around that area, which I really, really liked. It took a lot of the mythology, a lot of the culture, and it interwove it into the story with these others that I can't explain. Like I said, so much I want to say about some of these books, but I don't want to spoil it with you because I want you guys to go and pick it up and experience them for yourself. This is one of those books that's kind of beautifully written. You have to switch your mind a little bit and come out of the Western culture and go more into this ancient kind of nomadic desert culture. I liked it. There were some beautiful moments in it. Good men fall to monsters every day. Clever men are tricked by their own pride or by pretty words. That is this story in a nutshell. I can't wrap it up any better than that. I did finally get to pick up Reboot and Rebel by Amy Tintera. I sort of knew what I was getting into when I started the series, but I don't think I fully realized. This is a story that takes place in a world that has been devastated by a virus that when a person dies, their body is rebooted. These reboots are usually kept in a facility and used by a corporation to maintain the inner cities because they are so hard to kill. They basically become the enforcers for this corporation who pretty much now runs the cities. Except all of these reboots are usually under 20 because for some reason after 20 these reboots are killed. Now, a thing to take note of in these stories is I should have known by the description that this meant zombie-like characteristics. I am not a huge fan of zombies in any fashion. They're usually the monsters that I don't care for. I don't enjoy reading stories about them. I don't like hearing about other things wanting to eat human flesh and the weird things that happen and all the gruesome stuff that goes along with that. And so when I started to click that, that might have killed my enjoyment a little bit for this series. It was an interesting take on the zombie virus. There's a different nuance of control and the importance of how long you were dead before you were rebooted and how that plays and interconnects with the story and the struggle between normal humans and these reboots is an interesting dynamic, and what does evolution really mean? But I struggled with the violence and the gore and the zombie aspects of everything because I'm me, and therefore I had to step away a little bit. I don't think it's a series I'd ever pick up again, but if you do like YA and you do like zombies, you'll probably really enjoy this. So my preferences bear no mark on what your enjoyment of this story may be. I wasn't my cup of tea. I did finish it though, so that says something. It wasn't horrendous. Yeah. And lastly, I read The Spirit by D. Nicole King. What can I say about this story? Carrie is the protagonist of the story. She is forced to move to Iowa because of her parents' divorce and separation. She's not dealing with it very well, but when she moves in, she starts to notice some weird feelings and weird things going on in the town. And then she meets Lucas. This is a love story. This is a YA love story. This is a YA love story with ghosts. I love ghosts, which is what drew me to the story to begin with, but the writing in this story was to a point where it felt too juvenile for me. I struggled so much to get through this story. There were points where I just wanted to put the book down, but then there was other points where I'm like, well, maybe it gets better. It is the start of a series I won't be continuing on. I don't even know where to go with this. I probably should have given it a 1 star, but it wasn't so horrendous that I felt like it deserved that kind of rating. So I gave it a 2 star because while it felt juvenile, there was a clear beginning, middle, and end. Yeah, that's all I got about that one. So through all of that babbling, I hope you understood and maybe comprehended how my reading month went. I don't know if I did, but it's out there in the universe now. And here's to August, and I hope it's just as enjoyable. Heart your beautiful faces. Bye.